He worked the same routine every day. For Mike, it was just another ordinary workday. Pipes, faucets, simple repairs. Called 45-year-old ordinary plumber. Until he smelled a strong natural gas odor in the basement. At that moment, Mike's 15-year Navy SEAL EOD background would come into play. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If stories of hidden expertise and life-saving heroism resonate with you, subscribe for more tales of extraordinary people whose true capabilities emerge when lives are at stake. The morning sun cast long shadows across downtown Chicago as Mike Rodriguez loaded his white Ford van with the tools of his trade. At 45, he had been running Rodriguez Plumbing Services for 12 years, building a reputation for reliability and fair pricing among the office buildings and apartment complexes that made up his regular customer base. Mike's appearance was unremarkable. Work pants, company polo shirt, steel-toed boots, and a tool belt worn smooth by years of daily use. His van was equally ordinary, filled with pipe wrenches, drain snakes, and the 1,000 small parts that kept Chicago's plumbing systems functioning. To his customers, he was simply Mike the plumber, the guy who showed up on time, fixed the problem, and charged a fair price. His first call of the day was routine maintenance at the Meridian Office Tower, a 30-story building in the Loop District that housed law firms, accounting practices, and various other professional services. Mike had been servicing the building's plumbing systems for 8 years, developing a comfortable working relationship with the building management and maintenance staff. Building manager Sarah Chen met him in the lobby, clipboard in hand and looking slightly frazzled. "Morning, Mike. We've got several issues today. A clogged drain on the 15th floor, low water pressure complaints from the 20th floor." And she paused, checking her notes. "The facilities manager wants you to check the basement mechanical room. There have been some odor complaints." Mike nodded, shouldering his tool bag. "I'll start with the basement and work my way up." Odors usually indicate something that needs immediate attention. As Mike descended to the basement level, his trained senses automatically cataloged environmental details that most people would never notice. The subtle changes in air pressure as he moved between different areas of the building. The sound signatures of various mechanical systems. The way different odors indicated specific types of problems or potential hazards. These weren't skills he had learned as a plumber. They were part of 15 years of training as a Navy SEAL explosive ordnance disposal specialist, skills that had kept him alive through 4 deployments and countless encounters with improvised explosive devices, chemical threats, and unstable ordnance. The basement mechanical room was a maze of pipes, electrical panels, and HVAC equipment that served the building's 30 floors. Mike had worked in this space dozens of times over the years, but today something was different. As soon as he opened the door, his nostrils detected an odor that made every instinct from his military training surge to high alert. Natural gas, a significant concentration, indicating a leak somewhere in the building's gas delivery system. Mike's transformation was instantaneous but invisible. Outwardly, he remained the same methodical plumber who had entered the building 15 minutes earlier. But internally, Chief Petty Officer Mike Rodriguez, former Navy SEAL EOD specialist, began processing a potentially catastrophic situation with the cold precision that had made him one of the most effective explosive ordnance disposal technicians in the Navy. Natural gas leaks in high-rise buildings were essentially massive potential bombs. The right concentration of gas mixed with air could turn the entire structure into an explosive device, triggered by something as simple as a light switch, elevator motor, or even static electricity from carpeted floors. Mike's first priority was assessment. Using techniques learned from detecting improvised explosive devices, he began systematically tracing the source and extent of the gas leak. His movements were careful and controlled. Any spark or source of ignition could trigger an explosion that would kill hundreds of people and potentially collapse the entire building. The leak was coming from the main gas line that fed the building's heating system. Based on the concentration and distribution of the odor, Mike estimated that gas had been accumulating for several hours, possibly since the previous evening. The building's normal ventilation was insufficient to clear the dangerous concentration that was building up in the mechanical spaces. Mike's mind automatically began calculating explosive yield, blast radius, and casualty estimates. The same type of analysis he had performed countless times when dealing with insurgent bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan. The numbers were sobering. If the accumulated gas ignited, the basement level would be completely destroyed, upper floors would likely collapse, and everyone in the building would be killed or seriously injured. But unlike his military missions, Mike couldn't simply evacuate the area and call in a specialized EOD team. He was the EOD specialist, and 400 people were going to work in a building that had become a massive bomb. Mike pulled out his cell phone and called Sarah Chen. "Sarah, this is Mike. I need you to listen very carefully. We have a significant natural gas leak in the basement. This building needs to be evacuated immediately." "A gas leak? How serious are we talking?" "Serious enough that I need everyone out of the building in the next 15 minutes. Call the fire department and gas company, but don't use the building's internal communication system. Electrical systems could provide an ignition source." "Mike, you're scaring me. Are you saying the building could explode?" "I'm saying that if we don't handle this correctly, yes, that's exactly what could happen." While Sarah began coordinating the evacuation, Mike started implementing emergency protocols that drew directly from his military training. Using his cell phone's flashlight, instead of potentially sparking electrical lights, he began tracing the gas line to locate the exact source of the leak. The break was in a section of pipe that had been recently disturbed by construction work on an adjacent building. The vibrations from pile driving had apparently fractured a joint in the 40-year-old gas line, creating a leak that had been slowly filling the building's basement with explosive vapor. Mike's EOD training had taught him that the most dangerous moment in dealing with any explosive threat was often the attempt to render it safe. In this case, shutting off the gas supply required operating valves and moving through areas with high gas concentrations. Any mistake could trigger the very explosion he was trying to prevent. But Mike had spent 15 years making exactly these kinds of calculations under pressure. He knew how to move through dangerous environments, how to operate equipment safely in the presence of explosive materials, and how to maintain the mental clarity necessary to make life or death decisions with hundreds of lives hanging in the balance. Working with the methodical precision that had kept him alive through multiple combat deployments, Mike located the main gas shutoff valve for the building. The valve was old and hadn't been operated in years, requiring significant force to turn. Under normal circumstances, a plumber might use power tools or strike the valve with a wrench to break it free. Mike couldn't risk either approach. Instead, he used leverage techniques and controlled pressure to gradually work the valve closed, stopping the flow of gas into the building without creating sparks or sudden pressure changes that could trigger ignition. With the gas supply secured, Mike began the process of safely venting the accumulated gas from the building's mechanical spaces. This required opening specific ventilation systems and creating airflow patterns that would clear the explosive vapors without creating pockets of high concentration that could still pose a danger. 25 minutes after he had first detected the gas leak, Mike emerged from the basement to find the building surrounded by fire trucks, gas company vehicles, and emergency response teams. The evacuation had been completed successfully, with all 400 building occupants safely outside. Fire Chief David Morrison approached Mike as he exited the building. "Are you the plumber who identified the gas leak?" "Yes, sir." "Mike Rodriguez. The leak has been contained, but you'll want to have the gas company inspect the entire system before allowing anyone back inside." Chief Morrison studied Mike's calm demeanor and professional bearing. Most civilians would have been shaken by the experience of discovering a potentially catastrophic gas leak. Mike appeared completely composed, as if he dealt with life-threatening emergencies as part of his regular routine. "Mr. Rodriguez, My gas detection equipment is showing that you were working in an environment with explosive concentrations of natural gas. That level of exposure should have been immediately fatal if there had been any ignition source. I was aware of the risk, Mike replied simply. Are you aware that what you just did, entering a potentially explosive environment to secure the gas supply, that's usually handled by specialized hazmat teams, with extensive training in explosive ordnance disposal? Mike was quiet for a moment, recognizing that his carefully maintained civilian identity was about to be compromised. I have some background in that area. What kind of background? Military. Navy SEAL EOD specialist. 15 years active duty. Chief Morrison's expression changed immediately. EOD specialists were legendary within the emergency services community, the people trained to deal with the most dangerous explosive threats imaginable. Chief Rodriguez, he said, using Mike's former military rank, what you accomplished in there assessing the threat, safely securing the gas supply, and venting the building, that was textbook EOD work. You probably saved 400 lives today. Over the next several hours, as the gas company completed their safety inspection and the building was cleared for reoccupancy, word of Mike's background and heroic actions spread throughout the emergency response community and the building's tenant companies. Sarah Chen found Mike completing his incident report in the building lobby. Mike, I don't know how to thank you. The fire chief said that if you hadn't acted when you did, the entire building could have exploded. Just doing my job, Mike replied, packing his tools with the same methodical care he showed every day. No, you weren't. What you did in there that went far beyond plumbing. The fire chief told me about your military background. Why didn't you ever mention that you were Navy SEAL EOD? Mike looked out at the busy Chicago street, where office workers were returning to their building, unaware of how close they had come to disaster. Because I came to Chicago to be a plumber, not a bomb disposal specialist. I wanted a career where the stakes were clogged drains and leaky pipes, not life and death. But today the stakes were life and death, and you handled it perfectly. Today was different. Today people were going to die if I didn't use skills I thought I'd left behind. Building owner Marcus Thompson arrived that afternoon to personally thank Mike and understand what had happened. As one of Chicago's most prominent real estate developers, he had buildings throughout the city and was acutely aware of the potential liability and tragedy that had been averted. Mr. Rodriguez, he said, I've been briefed on what you did today. I understand you have military training that most plumbers don't possess. Some additional background, yes. I'd like to discuss an opportunity with you. I have buildings throughout Chicago, and after today, I'm realizing that standard maintenance contracts don't account for the kind of emergency expertise you demonstrated. Would you be interested in a consulting arrangement? You could continue your regular plumbing work, but also serve as an emergency response consultant for our properties. Mike considered the offer carefully. What would that involve? Training our maintenance staff in emergency protocols, developing safety procedures for our buildings, and being available for situations that require your specialized expertise. You'd essentially be doing what you did today, using your military training to keep people safe, but in a civilian context. I'm not looking to return to military-style operations. This wouldn't be military operations. This would be using your knowledge to prevent emergencies and protect civilians. Think of it as EOD work for peaceful purposes. 3 months later, Mike had expanded his role throughout Thompson's real estate portfolio. He still worked as a plumber for his regular customers, but now also served as an emergency preparedness consultant for high-rise buildings throughout Chicago. His first major training session was held at the Meridian Office Tower, where building maintenance staff and tenant safety coordinators learned to identify potential hazards, implement emergency protocols, and coordinate with first responders during crisis situations. The most important thing to understand, Mike told the assembled group, is that most emergencies can be prevented if you know what to look for and how to respond early. Today we're going to learn to think like emergency responders, even though we're civilian building staff. Detective Maria Santos from the Chicago Police Department attended the training as part of the city's building safety initiative. She had worked with numerous emergency response situations over her 15-year career, but she was impressed by Mike's ability to break down complex safety concepts into practical skills that non-experts could apply. "Mr. Rodriguez," she said after the session, "I've worked with a lot of military veterans, but your ability to translate combat experience into civilian safety applications is remarkable. Have you considered working with the police department? In what capacity?" "We occasionally deal with explosive devices, pipe bombs, suspicious packages, improvised explosive devices. Having someone with your background available for consultation could save lives." Mike was quiet for a moment, considering how far his civilian career had evolved from his original intention to simply fix pipes and avoid the high-stakes world he had left behind. "I'm open to consultation, but I'm not looking to return to active bomb disposal." "Understood, but your expertise could help us make better decisions about when to call in federal EOD teams versus when we can handle situations with local resources." 6 months after the gas leak incident, Mike received a call that would test his resolve to stay in civilian life. A suspicious package had been found at Chicago's Union Station during rush hour, and the police needed immediate assessment, while federal bomb disposal teams were en route from 40 minutes away. Mike arrived at the scene to find the area evacuated, and bomb squad personnel maintaining a safe perimeter around what appeared to be a backpack with visible wires protruding from it. "Mike, thank God you're here," said Sergeant Tom Wilson, whom Mike had met during his police consultation work. "We've got 20,000 people trying to get home through Union Station, and we can't wait 40 minutes for the federal team." Mike studied the device from a safe distance, his trained eye automatically analyzing the visible components and construction techniques. After 15 years of dealing with improvised explosive devices, he could often determine threat levels and appropriate responses just from visual assessment. "It's not a bomb," he said after several minutes of observation. "How can you be sure?" "The wire routing is wrong for an actual explosive device. Real IEDs have specific electrical pathways that this doesn't follow. This looks like someone watched too many movies about how bombs are supposed to look. So it's a hoax? Most likely, but I'd recommend treating it as suspicious until you can get closer examination. Send in the robot first, then have someone who knows what they're looking at confirm it's not a real threat." Mike's assessment proved correct. The device was a student's electronics project that had been accidentally left behind, with components that superficially resembled explosive devices, but posed no actual danger. "You saved us from evacuating half of downtown Chicago," Detective Santos told him afterward. "That's the second time in 6 months you've prevented a potential disaster, just by being in the right place with the right knowledge." 1 year after the gas leak incident, Mike stood in the basement mechanical room of the Meridian office tower, conducting a routine inspection of the gas lines that had been completely replaced and upgraded following his life-saving intervention. The space now featured state-of-the-art gas detection equipment and emergency ventilation systems that could respond automatically to similar threats. A young building engineer named Carlos Martinez accompanied him on the inspection. Carlos was part of the new generation of maintenance staff, who had been trained in Mike's emergency response protocols. "Mr. Rodriguez," Carlos said as they completed their inspection, "I wanted to thank you for the training you've given our team. I feel like I actually know what to look for now, instead of just going through maintenance checklists." "The most important thing is staying aware of your environment," Mike replied. "Most emergencies give you warning signs if you know how to recognize them." "Is it hard, transitioning from military bomb disposal to civilian building maintenance?" Mike considered the question while testing a gas valve that could have been the source of catastrophic explosion just a year earlier. "I thought it would be a complete change when I started this job. I wanted to get as far away from explosive ordnance as possible, but I've learned that the skills translate in ways I didn't expect. Paying attention to details, thinking systematically about potential problems, staying calm under pressure.
those abilities are just as valuable for preventing civilian emergencies as they were for handling military threats. Do you miss the military work? I miss serving with my team and the sense of purpose that came with protecting other service members. But I've found a different kind of purpose here, using the same skills to protect civilians going about their daily lives. As they finished the inspection and headed back to the main floors, Mike reflected on the unexpected path his civilian career had taken. He had come to Chicago, hoping to leave his military identity behind and find peace in routine plumbing work. Instead, he had discovered that his specialized training could serve civilian communities in ways he had never imagined. The gas leak incident had forced him to choose between maintaining his anonymity and saving 400 lives. He had made the right choice, and in doing so, had found a way to continue serving others without returning to active military duty. His work now spanned multiple buildings throughout Chicago, training civilian staff in emergency response, consulting with law enforcement on suspicious devices, and developing safety protocols that had been adopted by building managers throughout the region. Mike had learned that heroism didn't require returning to combat zones or handling military ordnance. Sometimes it meant recognizing a gas leak in a basement and having the expertise to prevent it from becoming a tragedy. Sometimes it meant teaching a young building engineer how to spot potential hazards before they became emergencies. The white Ford van still said Rodriguez Plumbing Services on the side, and Mike still spent most of his time fixing pipes and unclogging drains. But now his business card also listed emergency preparedness consultant, and his phone number was in the emergency contact lists of building managers, police departments, and fire stations throughout Chicago. He had successfully integrated his two identities, the elite warrior trained to handle the most dangerous explosive threats imaginable, and the civilian tradesman who took pride in solving everyday problems for ordinary people. Both roles served the same fundamental purpose, protecting people and keeping communities safe. As Mike drove to his next appointment, a routine drain cleaning at an apartment complex, he passed the Meridian office tower, where 400 people were working safely in a building that could have been their tomb, if not for 15 years of Navy SEAL training applied to a Chicago plumbing emergency. Sometimes the most important battles are fought not on foreign battlefields, but in the basements of office buildings, where ordinary people work. Sometimes the most valuable service comes not from defeating enemy combatants, but from preventing disasters that could destroy entire communities. Mike Rodriguez had found his place in civilian life, not by abandoning his military skills, but by finding new ways to use them in service of others. The greatest explosions he now prevented were the ones that never happened, and the greatest victories were measured in lives saved rather than enemies defeated.